Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy DiCincini. Today I'm talking to Lou Morrell, the board chair of the Theater Breaking Through Barriers.
Hello,
Welcome
Keith.
to the show, Lou.
Thank you, Keith. It's good to be here.
So, let's get some background on who you are and what brought you to, or how did you discover theater breaking through barriers before we get into your role as board chair?
Um, the simple answer, there's a much longer answer, but the simple answer is back, about 20 years ago when I was chairing Emerging Artist Theater. A couple of our members were also members of Theater Breaking Through Barriers. Um, and so I knew of the company. I had met Ike, I'd seen some of their work, and it was Christine Bruno who was at both doing work with Theater Breaking Through Emerging Artist Theater. So I knew of her work, and that's also where I first came across um, Brunstead. I'm just blacking her first name, but I knew of the company. Um, but then in the interim, I was chaired another not-for-profit called the American Birding Association. And when that term expired after the 9 years, I wanted to get back into theater. And a number of people in the birding and environmental community are very active in the birding community. Just happens to be. And some of my contacts they said, pick a theater, any theater you want, you'll be on the board. And
Oh,
literally in the not-for-profit world. And I said, I know of the theater. I know the theater speaks to my heart. I know its work. I know its mission. And Ike had just passed away the year before. So I wrote
yeah.
an email to Nick Faselli, a cold email, and said, hey, Nick, I'm available. He wrote back in 30 seconds. Literally, it was just an email, and he wrote back and said, yes, let's sit and talk. Um, some people know me from the theater world, some people know me from the not-for-profit world. Um, my expertise is governance, so I knew the company. I went to get back into theater, and I wrote Nick.
So you mentioned Christina Bruno. That's very interesting because I became aware of theater breaking through barriers in 2019 when you guys put on Public Servant, and she was in that. And Anna Lance, who also starred in that as well, was had just been in the Arizona Theater Company's production of The Diary of Anne Frank. And I was on the board of Arizona Theater Company. And I was seeing a show every year. They do a trip to New York, see Broadway plays. I happened to be there, and so we were seeing Tootsie. And Anna was sitting right next to me, and she told me about the next show she was going to be in. And she mentioned that it was this disability theater company and I should come along and see the show. and that was public servant. And my parents and I went to that, and then I immediately got introduced to Nicholas Vercelli after the performance, and we hit it off like this. I mean, that's the type of artistic director we have at the theater company. Very personable. Oh, he knows his stuff and he can spot talent, whether it's in the non-profit realm or the artistic realm. Entertainment realm. He's very, very good at spotting and collaborating with talent. And so that is how I became aware of theater breaking through barriers. And it's because Anna Lance was cast alongside Christina Bruno, who I got to know after the performance as well. And so I really came and became aware of theater breaking through barriers because I was on the board of another theater company, and I was trying, and I hate that I wasn't able to get the two theaters to do a cross country or cross production collaboration, because that would have been fantastic. But so that's how I became involved with theater breaking through barriers. So small world.
Yeah, no, it would go back. I guess the first time is probably around 2003 or four. This other company with Emerging Artist Theater, and that company, which I chaired for 6 years, kind of filled a gap when when certain other theater companies had kind of not had failed in the LBQT world and others. And at that time, theater breaking through barriers was still more focused on work with hearing impaired.
Yeah, we had a different name then.
Different, and it was just changing in 2000 to incorporate all disabilities.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who had been on the board of another not-for-profit I chaired for 15 years in the entitlement area for seniors. And she, in her latter part of her life, became an actress, and she introduced me to Emerging Artist Theater, which led to being introduced to Becca Brunstetter, who has always been a friend of Christine's, and she wrote Public Servant for Christine.
Okay, I didn't know that, but I'm not at all surprised to hear that.
It's a small world when the people, so you know, and then you're on a board of another with two actors and actresses who are very active, have been on the boards of the Audubon Society and the like, and you know, so the cross cultivation.
Yeah, it's something. And at that time, I was concerned because I wanted both theaters to collaborate, but I was so new to being on boards that I was really scared. Could I join the boards of two separate theater companies? So I got involved with the Playmaker Intensive. which this was right before COVID hit the year before, and I thought it was a one and done, because then the world changed. But that the Playmaker Intensive, I'm sure other theater companies do it. They may not call it that. Maybe they don't. I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is that is one of the activities, programs, showcases we put on, that just from a viewer point of view immediately attracted me. And then uh, I got cast in the third, I think, after COVID, and you did it virtually and now hybrid. But so, yeah, it's a very, very small world. Uh,
You know, you mentioned the intensives. I think what you have to do is kind of look at the whole. Intensives have been around for a long time, but they changed with COVID.
yeah,
Before and with many theater companies, their first level to introduce the new play to get new playwrights involved and new actors involved, they do the intensives. Normally, you're sitting in a room, 6 or 8 plays are read, and you may select a couple, and they may go forward. The intensives, but in that case, and then at that time up to 2018, you were also allowed, if you were a full off-Broadway company like we are, operate under what they call letter of agreement, to operate under the showcase codes of Actors Equity.
yeah,
And that was the next step where people like Becca and Sam Hunter and others wrote for those
yeah,
plays. It was the step above. It was after the intensives, the first step. Certain things moved to showcase. Also, new plays were brought into the intensives. But in 2018, Actors Equity stopped allowing what we call the letter of agreement companies, theater companies who were operating under a letter agreement, to be able to do plays under any other code. So, and it stopped right at in 2018. So part of our ability to do short plays was curtailed.
yeah,
And so so you were doing the intensives and other things to try to introduce new playwrights and actors, but COVID allowed us to do something else. It allowed us to take the intensive structure, work with we've worked in 7 or 8 intensives with 300 actors and playwrights.
yeah.
No one does that through their initial programs.
No,
And
no one.
and we decided to do it using the Zoom platforms. Nick was quite creative in this, and present one play a night,
Yeah,
which was of 10 to 20 minutes in length, maybe sometimes a little longer, with talkbacks, at least introductions afterwards. And then as they got established, we said, and we were able to go back to live theater after COVID. We said, well, let's do what we used to do. Let's do a selection of plays and present them all in one night at the
yeah,
end, as part of the intensive. So it kind of grew.
yeah.
But they are workshops.
Yeah.
And
They are workshops. Yeah, yeah,
so what they allow you to do, what that allowed us to do with the intensives is to open up and work with actors and playwrights who never worked with a company. Many hadn't never worked with a company. Many had. Almost a third to 40% are people with disabilities. But this was an opportunity that they've never had before. That we worked with people in the intensives that were all over the world were participating.
Yeah.
Can't do that in a New York intensive. So it
No,
opened up a
no,
whole
you
new,
can't.
it's the first level, and we like to say it's the first interview. It's the first chance for us to see, for Nick to see new actors who work with new playwrights. And then they move on.
Yeah, and the first show I did, I acted opposite a actor in France. I mean, what other theater company would be able to do that? I mean, it's just
It is,
amazing.
the intensives offered the opportunity. Now, the short play festivals, which were done under the showcase code of Actors Equity, allowed us to even do more. And that was where people in the theater community can come in and see the actors. That's where Greg Muscala got his first introduction. That's where Lopez got his first introduction.
Yeah,
And this led to them moving up and getting other roles and getting their equity cards.
yeah,
TBTB is the development theater, not for new works, even though it does a lot of new
yeah,
works and a lot of people, but it's a development theater and an access for people who have actors who have disabilities, professionals. These are
yeah,
not new people. These are trained actors. Some people have had the disabilities been from birth
yeah,
or coming along. Some have been due to accidents, due
yeah,
to disease, and they've had to change careers and they've had no opportunity. We've had
yeah,
Broadway dancers who have been members who danced major shows who, because of accidents or illness, lost the ability and they wanted to
yeah,
stay in theater. And so in the latter part of the careers, TBT offers the opportunity. And it
yeah,
offered the opportunity through starting with the intensives, moving to the short play festivals, moving up the next level to be on a full off-Broadway production. So
yeah,
it's that
yeah. I mean,
workflow.
what? What?
Sorry.
What did you say?
No, I just said it's the whole sequence if it works. That's why it's so important for us to be able to work with Actors Equity and get
Yeah,
back to being able to do the showcase or developmental short play festivals in an off-Broadway setting, but not in under the letter of agreement, which is
yeah,
the same thing that all the major theater companies operate under. From Signature, we're operating on the same rules that Signature does, for example, but we're a $400,000 company, and they're a $20 million company.
yeah, yeah. So, what do you do outside of your board chairmanship?
Um, well, I've been retired for 19 years, which is,
Wow, wow.
yeah, I had spent 35 years in internal corporate finance for a major financial institution, in really governance structure, capital markets, M&A work for the company itself, not for clients. My only client was the company. But at the same time, I paralleled, which is now 40 some years plus in the not-for-profit world, parallel with the same. You're using the same disciplines in terms of working with the not-for-profit. So while and my fields of interest in the not-for-profits have been everything from theater and music to environmental, with the Wildlife Conservation Society and the American Birding Association, to working with a group that dealt with a social worker model, working with seniors. So it's been and it's always been more in the governance and structural point of view. And it's been at the chair level most of the time. So my wife says I can only chair one not-for-profit at the same time and be married. So it's linear.
And
So
How did you and your wife meet?
Carnegie, freshman year at Carnegie Mellon University. It was
Wow.
Carnegie Tech at the time.
Oh,
And then when we graduated, the day we graduated, it became Carnegie Mellon University. So we've been married 54 years. So
wow, congratulations. What's your secret?
um, friendship
Yeah, yeah. Communication.
and friendship.
Yeah. So
So
theater,
so
yeah,
outside, keep the interest stay. I mean, I've still interested in environmental world and birding, theater. Um, um, by the nature, I could be a political person, but by the nature of if you're going to be involved in not for profits, especially if you're working with grants,
yeah,
funding, you have to be totally neutral in your life.
yeah, yeah.
Not in your beliefs, but in your life.
Yeah, yeah. I'm beginning to realize that as I start my own non-profit next year, uh, which will basically house and run the video cats that show to give it more legitimacy and uh,
You know,
because
and
it hasn't been a hobby since season 2. It's my real job. It's what I'm most passionate about. I do acting on the side. I work on bars on the side. This is my main job.
yeah, it becomes a main job, and
Yeah.
especially if you want to set up a not-for-profit or a structure. Um, I'll also do master classes on governance
Wow.
of not-for-profits, and um, you know when you start talking to people, and they just very few people really have a good understanding of the structure of a not-for-profit, especially
Yeah.
in the not-for-profit theater world. And the disciplines are no different than if you're in the corporate world. And of course, a small not-for-profit has different characteristics, a mid-sized not-for-profit, and then the
And
big
big.
guys.
Yeah.
But we all operate, we have the same regulator. Not-for-profits are regulated by the IRS and
Yeah.
the states. There are someplace around 1.5 million not-for-profits registered
Yeah.
in this country. Most of them, and they're all done under what's called the Section 501c.
Yeah.
There are 29 different parts of 5019C. We're
Yeah.
501c3, which
Yeah.
is a charity, and it gives us the ability to raise funds, and people can get tax deductions for what they contribute to us. But we're mission driven, and we have to
Yeah.
follow the mission.
And that's exactly what mine will be. It's about following the mission of promoting advocacy and empowerment through conversational podcasts and video cats. There's no agenda here besides that. It's highlighting a person or group and giving them another platform to advocate on. There's no street cred, no backroom deals, none of that. It's just this is what I was born to do. But if we had met in 2018 and you had told me, oh yeah, you'll be doing this and you'll be on different boards and you'll be a part-time, very amateur actor, I would be like, one, who are you? Are you feeling okay? I think you got the wrong guy here because, uh, I mean, even though I'm from New York, I was always an audience member. I mean, my parents. Oh, I'm lucky enough to see a lot of Broadway shows, and I saw Phantom, Les Mis, and Cats. Not in that order, probably Cats first, because I was a child. But had I not seen those three Broadway shows, I don't think I would be interested in theater. Uh, those shows really hooked me in, and then my love for Shakespeare came later on, several years later, but that was my introduction to theater. It was through those three musicals that really carried me to today.
I think my interest in theater, well, I started reading plays at a very young age, probably as a young teenager. So the voice of the playwright was very important. My love for musicals, my love for Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah,
The first play that I saw was in a summer stock. It was No Time for Sergeants,
yeah.
the comedy. First, but we have seen starting the first real musical that we probably have seen. Actually, I can't remember. I know the first Gilbert and Sullivan was Mikado with Green in it. It was, the Dorley Cart was doing a tour in the U.S. We saw them when I was in high school, Baltimore. But I also was always had a love for music and would be going to concerts. So music and theater were always a part. But many of the performing arts. I've been on the board of a music ensemble as well as theater. So it's always been part of my life. And the voice of the playwright is what draws me into working with theater companies.
And so theater, well, the whole world has changed thanks to COVID, but particularly theater and the way that we operate as a theater company has changed. Going forward, what do you think are the biggest lessons as theater and entertainment, in particularly, continue to evolve in this new normal that we find ourselves in?
I'm not sure how much of a new mode it is. I think that technology is going to change the way productions are done, and technology is going to change the accessibility issues and make theater more accessible and the performing arts more accessible, both for the performers and the audiences. It also will allow to reach out to audiences who don't have access to theater and the performing arts in their communities. So you're going to see more of the use of technology. But the voice of the playwright and the live theater is an experience that's not going to change. And I think it's more prevalent in many European countries and around the world. Live theater is probably more, it's probably outweighing the technology. What I say, the use of the Zoom technology that came up for COVID, we're continuing in some form here. But I think that live theater and regional theater is still going to be a major part of the scene. The issue is funding.
Yeah.
The issue is funding, and in today's world, there's so much money available for charitable giving. One of the areas that has declined has been the performing arts. The percentage and the amount of money going into performing arts is less. And maybe that's due to, what's its cause? It's not a
Yeah.
matter of lack of money, because with the various rules and governance about how foundations have to give, what big businesses need to still do for social responsibility, they're giving, but the performing arts component is lessening. Part of it's probably due to the fact that technology has made certain things more accessible. And, you're paying for cable TV. I don't need to give a charitable contribution to a performing arts theater. And you're seeing it right now in many theaters curtailing their programs. That if they did, 4 or 5 main stage productions a year, they're now doing 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Part of it's due to cost. It is expensive, even for a New York-based theater company, to mount an off-Broadway show.
Yeah. Only Broadway show, for that
Broadway
matter, it is really expensive.
Expensive. And the various rules. I mean, part of my governance presentation is the difference between commercial theaters and not-for-profit theaters, and the structure. In terms of, if you're going to invest in a Broadway theater, it's very risky. A Broadway production, it's very risky. But the tax deductions are there and are valuable to you.
Yeah.
In a not-for-profit theater, you're dealing with the funding comes mainly from foundation grants and other contributions. You're going to get a tax deduction for your contribution, but that's limited. It doesn't have the same power. Now, there are theater companies in the not-for-profit world have created some very interesting models that allow for joint venturing and angel money to be develop incubators of shows, such as the Atlantic Theater Company. It's a great incubator. It's probably one of the best incubators around. A theater company like Theater Breaking Through Barriers it's not its purpose. It's not its purpose to be an incubator. Its purpose is to be to offer opportunity for people who have been excluded in the past. And it offers opportunity, and it's different from other companies that have dealt with lack of opportunity. In many fields, there was always an opportunity to be an actor, whether it was in a regional theater company or an ethnically based theater company. You could be an actor. You had opportunity. You couldn't get access to Broadway or to the upper levels. That's changing.
Yeah.
In the disability world, you had no access. You had no ability to perform.
No.
And that's what I envisioned. And what's happening is that we have been leaders in providing opportunity. We're so, we see many more opportunities coming today, but it's limited. It's not to the same extent that what a theater like Theater Breaking Through Barriers has done. And part of our work is not only working here in the U.S., we were very active in helping to establish the first such company in Japan.
Yeah.
To work with actors with disability. Collaborations of that part, they know we're not Deaf West. We don't have the funding or structure, but people mention, Deaf West, that's number one company that deals with actors with disability. Second company, that's TBTB. But it's a world of difference.
Yeah, world of difference. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the comparison that it's like, well, if they can reach this level, which they have, but they weren't always like that, why can't you? Well, comparison, it's
It's
I
still
don't
it's still
know
it's still the
who.
it's still the we can get foundations and others to fund what we do.
Yeah,
In the theater world, it's very hard for us because we don't emphasize disability. We simply say we are actors and playwrights. We represent playwrights and actors who happen to have a disability.
yeah,
Disability is second. The actor is first.
yeah,
And in the field of disability funding, there's a lot of money available for organizations that work with disability, and less to come to an organization who is not focused on any specific disability, but is focused on um, access for people who happen to have and who are professionals,
yeah,
not training actors, not training playwrights, working with people who are on the quote are professionals. They've done it educationally, they've had experience, and they haven't had opportunity.
yeah. It's like, I mean, so where do we go from here?
We
Where
have
we
to,
are right now? How
but
do
we,
we proceed?
but we can continue to be who we are, but that's limited in terms of exposure. The company itself, by what it's introduced in terms of accessibility for actors and accessibility for the audience, are now being incorporated by many of the theater companies. Who are the first to do the total captioning, the play, the whole thing.
Yeah,
And so that type of advocacy, still need to be an advocate, but continue to do our work. And our advocacy is by presenting works with actors, with professionals, with disability, integrating them into productions that are not just with actors with disability, and to get audiences to come and not have a negative perception of disability. They come. We do not get audiences because people hear, oh, it's a company that works with actors with disabled people. It's not going to be the same quality. But Keith, from what you've
yeah,
seen, we
yeah.
are quality.
Oh,
This
yeah,
this is, and it shows. We have had situations where actors have said, well, I've never worked with an actor with a disability. What's it like? And they said no to us. And then they work with us and they say, wait a minute. Yeah, certain accommodations have to be made.
yeah,
If you're working with a sight impaired actor,
yeah,
you work with the company, with the stage manager and everybody else, and knows what they have to do to make cues
yeah,
to
eh,
allow it.
yeah.
And
And
that's
yeah,
so for us, we need to be able to be in a position to produce more. We need to be able to get back to being able to or showcase work or developmental work in an off-Broadway setting and be able to do more than one main stage production a year. And we need to actually outreach to wider than the theater community in the disability world. We need to move to, for our own funding, we have to go to those foundations and such who have supported actors like yourself or Greg Pascal or the like over time. So that's where we have to move to. We have to widen our scope of access to the funding, the foundation world, to the theater world. We're already well within in the off-Broadway world. Nick is voted a legend of off-Broadway
yeah,
for all his work. I mean, you're dealing with
right. It's
have 30 or 40 years experience in theater.
yeah,
And so my job, the job of the board is the job of a board of a not-for-profit are the fiduciaries. They're not managing companies. managing
No.
the company. That's the responsibility. Now, if you're a small not-for-profit, board becomes a management board because they don't have anybody to do the work.
Yeah.
In the big guys, like Signature or Roundabout or Public Theater, they have staffs of 50, 60, 70 people running the company. For a company like TBTB, which is in the middle, small, you don't necessarily have the expertise to run a company. So our boards become hybrids.
Yeah.
As you know, the world of accounting for not-for-profits is counterintuitive. And the expertise within a not-for-profit in that field is scarce. You don't have people. And so you have to, if you have a board member who understands not-for-profit accounting, they will work more closely. They'll cross the line at the request of the executive director. Board should never manage a company unless it's asked to by the managing director, by the executive director. Our role is to protect the interests of the stakeholders, which is the contributors. If you're a member company, members of the company, such as if you have a membership company, the members are your contributors. The actors in part, but not as a governance structure. Yes, we're representing the actors, but as a board, we're not representing the actors. We have to make sure that what we do is we have to ensure compliance with mission, govern with all the rules and regulations that are there, and to help to provide the funding. That's the role of our board. So from the board level, we're there to be able to provide the resources to enable the company to grow. And so we work with Nick, we work with the others in terms of what's the plan? How do you get there? How do you resolve the issues you're facing, such as dealing with regulatory aspects that could negatively impact you? To come up with creative structures that enable funding, to help to provide the resources you need to grow. We operate on a very thin ship. We have our artistic director, Nick, is also our executive director. Ideally, with a company that's slightly larger, you would have a separate executive director, a separate artistic director. There's inherent conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
And by having Nick on the board, not necessarily in many cases as an artistic director on the board, but because you need to work together in terms of policy and structure, you need everybody's voice at that level.
Yeah.
But you never want to have the board step into the artistic side.
No, you don't.
You don't. That leads to eventually disaster. And you've seen many theater companies in the not-for-profit world go out of business.
Yeah.
Fail because of the inherent conflicts. So the board's role is to make sure those conflicts don't occur.
Yeah. So most recent production was Neil Simon's I Ought to Be in Pictures. That's not a very well-known play of Neil Simon's. What would you like doing a not totally obscure, but a lesser-known work of a rightfully so a titan of American theater? What would you like putting on? A show that isn't well known?
I think you have to go back to what the companies can do. If a play is in the public domain, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. But when you're dealing with a play, and if you're commissioning play, like we did with Becca Brunstetter or Sam Hunter's, the play we did by Sam Hunter. These are known playwrights, and they're writing plays specifically for us. That's one thing. But when you're going back to the end, Shakespeare,
Yeah.
which we did other things. But if you're working with other playwrights to do other plays, you have to get the rights to them.
Yeah.
And the people who control the rights are going to look at the company and they're going to look at saying, well, what do we think is going to work? They're not going to give us, they're not going to give Theater Breaking Through Barriers the rights to do The Odd Couple.
Yeah.
Less likely. We tried first to get the right to think about the rights to Prisoner's Second Avenue. Whether that would be an appropriate play or not, because you can argue. But the decision is Nick. So Nick came up with a series of plays he thought we could get the rights to, that we thought would have an audience based on Neil Simon, and that were where we had a reasonably good shot at getting the rights, and when we could afford to do them.
Yeah.
If you did the year before, we did. I mean, Neil Simon's play had a 3-character play.
Yeah.
That's affordable for a theater company of our size. And that has to go into when an artistic director is making his recommendations and thinking, he has to think of what the theater can afford to do. And figure Neil Simon, the play had a very successful run the first time.
Yeah.
It's one of its actresses won the Best Supporting Actress. It was turned into a movie.
Yeah.
It was considered, Neil Simon considered one of its favorite plays.
Oh, really?
Dedicated to his parents. So you had a play which you thought was, yes, it was not well known. It was considered in the middle of his plays.
Canon.
Of the canon. And he thought that Simon, in itself would be able to draw. And it did draw. Yeah. And it did draw for us to be our second most successful play in terms of drawing. The most successful play we ever did was Uninvited Guest in Agatha Christie, because it was never advertised as being involved with a company with disability.
Yeah.
But
although God of Carnage, which we did the year prior, or the season prior, I thought was very well attended, and you had big names in the audience. And
we did, and we had big names come. Part of it was interesting, the Carnegie Mellon connection, but that's not because of some of the actors in it were the board of trustee. But anyway, but again, it did not do as well as Simon. But it's surprising.
Yeah, that is surprising.
And even the Becca Brunstetter, which should have, with Becca's name and the Cape was running at the same time.
Yeah,
you don't get the audience. It's the mess. How do you get the message across to people that you're coming to see a professional theater company who happens to be working with actors?
So, what, in your viewpoint, what does TVTB need right now to continue to flourish, continue to reinvent itself, continue to promote and advocate for actors of all abilities to be taken and valued seriously as gainful employees?
To a parallel course. One, it continues to need to do the work it's doing, and it needs to expand that. It needs to be able to get back to more showcase productions, to continue with its intensives, to have that as the first rehearsal level, basically, to develop and select, and then move it into, if you're working with 300 actors, playwrights over time with the intensives, a short play festival works with 30 to 40. Main stage works with 5 to 15, depending on in terms of stage managers. So you need to be able to continue to provide opportunity. And to provide opportunity means you need to have funding. You need to be able to widen your funding base within the theater community and outside the theater community to people who recognize what you're doing. We can't offer the financial benefits to an investor. We have to deal with people who are working both in the theater world and in the disability world to fund this. To do that, we need to build an infrastructure. This was a founder's company when Ike founded the company, which means Ike and his friends, they got together, they created a company, he had a purpose. As more and more actors got involved in playwrights, such as A.R. Gurney and the like, the thing had to move to encompass all disability. Well, you had to build an infrastructure to support it. Well, in founders' companies, that doesn't necessarily happen until the founder passes away and begins to do it. Ike recognized early on with his illness that he needed to move the company to the next person. And he offered it to Nick to run the company.
Yeah.
Nick had no experience in running a theater company. He was an actor. He was a director. And he used learning on the field, on the fly. And he was astute enough to know he needed help. And when he saw somebody who had the experience, he jumped at it. And we've been able to bring in people who've had some of the experiences, like with some of our other directors who have, Rich Allen, as you know, was the CFO of Snapple. I mean, these are people who know the accounting and finance world. He also works with many other not-for-profits, and his daughter got her start with us, Kira Allen, who is an actress with disability. Yeah. But she didn't know anything. I mean, her mother brought her to one of the intensives when she was 18 years old. She appeared in a showcase production written by Becca Brunstetter, and the next thing she knows, she has a movie role. Yeah. She still can't get, but theater roles are still not open very often to her. Yeah. But you bring the board. You have Sue Furtzinger, one of the best development people around. She now is head of institutional development for Playwrights Horizon. These are people who know the field and who can help us. We don't have a deep pocket investor. We have people who know the theater world and know the disability world. We have very actors who are well known. In the disability world, and when you see them on Law and Order, no one knows they have a disability. No, it's. But so we need to build an infrastructure, which requires funding that can have our own. We need a development director. We need to be able to widen funding. It can't rest with the artistic director. We need to be able to create this dual component managing the business artistic side within the company. So Nick can do what he does best, the artistic side. He's one of the best directors around. I mean, he not if opportunities came for him to direct another show, a Broadway show or a major off-Broadway show, people should jump at him to get it. But he is a one-man shop, basically from the management. We have 3 part-time staff members working with Nick. 2 are within the disabled world. So we have not only a mission to work with actors with disability, we have a mission to work with people with disability in our structure. But we have to reach out and build that infrastructure, which needs additional funding. I mean, when a person like Nick is running a company like TVTV, that's their only job.
Yeah.
They've got to be compensated for that. So, yeah, we run at a basic operating budget before you start of a couple $100,000 to cover the salaries, the office space, everything else we need, and probably some of the intensive work. But you need another 200,000 or 250,000 to do an off-Broadway show.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult nut for if you don't have a board that has access to a lot of funding. So yes,
Yeah.
we need to build the infrastructure in the company to allow us to grow, and we need to develop the board to get more people involved who may have access to funding sources, both in the theater world and in the disability world and in the corporate. This is a board who loves the company. It's dedicated to the company, and it comes with great experience.
Yeah, it does.
I have to say, I can say you're not going to find, for many not-for-profits, our size level of experience on the board.
No.
And those of us like myself, we're getting older, and a lot of our contacts are not there. So we need a younger board, and and it's there. I mean, for me, the theater world, I can personally say, being on boards, being involved in the theater world, being involved in the environmental world, in birding, and in other things, has widened as you get older. It's not the narrowing, it's the widening of your friendships and scope. So I'm going to continue, even though I've told them 3 years, and when you're 81 or 82, that's enough.
So, in case there are any aspiring advocates who are also interested in theater and advocacy and want to become more involved in theater in general, what would be some action points or some advice you would give them? Let's say they're just getting out of college and really want to get involved in this type of work. What would be your advice to them?
See theater.
What?
Come.
Yeah.
See the theater.
Yeah.
Come.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to come. Don't be afraid. I mean, we have people are afraid to see actors with disability. They're worried about their own mortality, their own life.
Yeah.
They don't want to recognize. I mean, as Nick says, the disability affects everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the one thing that you have no control of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think people should read his speech that he wrote for World Theater Day a couple of years ago. It's online. It was supposed to be a live event, but COVID intervened, so it's only a taped event. But it is a powerful speech about theater and disability, and we have to continue to work and do collaborations with other theater companies to if we want to do a collaboration with Theater X, and we go to them and say, okay, to do a collaboration with us, we need you to commit to working with actors with this. We need you to be able to work here. It could be a shared. It can't be, well, we want to use your name because it's connected, and we'll use one or two of your actors. No, it's a sharing.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to, and we have to work. It's easy to say, let's work with other companies who work with disability on a different level. But And that may be good to be able to take them and help them move to the professional level. But we have to work with our actors and playwrights we work with. It's the companies that are working with the general theater world. We have to work with collaborations, for example, with if we do a reading series, Signature, which, as you know, we're working on. It's not quite there yet to do some work with Sam Hunter's plays. Sam wrote what I think is best, in my opinion. I've read a lot of Sam Hunter's work and seen a number. I think the play he wrote for us, The Healing, is the best plays that he's written. But it's not going to be performed very often because 8 of the characters are actors with disability.
Yeah.
Disability is part of it. But it's a strong play. Sam knows the company. And hopefully someday he'll write another play for us. But we have to raise our profile not only within the theater community, but outside the theater community in the realm of people who work with people with disability, provide opportunity. That's one reason why I've worked so hard to work with the Rusk Institute at New York, at NYU Langone, the medical hospital. Rusk is one of the best physical therapy groups in the world. And they work a great deal. And Dr. Rusk's philosophy about people with disabilities is the same as ours. They're not limited. And so we've worked very hard with them to try to work with their groups. This year, there's a group that it's called LEAD. It's their amputee group. And these are all people who have lost limbs. And we've gone and went and had a session with them. We thought it'd be 15 minutes, so the first part of their monthly meeting. And it was the whole hour. And it was an interchange between 2 of our actors who are people with lost limbs, and to share experiences, to share advice. And you found out that a number of those people in that group, a couple of them, had access to the theater world, were interested. So we need to take what we're doing and taking that to people who in the disability community and show this is opportunity. You're equal. You're an actor. You're equal. You're no different than Meryl Streep is no different than Anita Hollander in terms of.
So I like to think that both advocates with disabilities and those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities listen and watch this program. I'm not naive enough to think that each group and groups within those groups take the same things away from each episode. So, as my guests, what do you hope that advocates, actors, playwrights, stage managers with disabilities take away from everything we've talked about in this episode? What do you hope that those listeners and viewers who haven't discovered or embraced their own disabilities take away from this episode?
I think they need to take away that the opportunities are there. What we do is says it's the quality is not affected. Quality is the same. The opportunities are not there. You've got to be able to provide opportunity. And therefore, you've got to support those organizations that provide opportunity through advocacy, through and working with those companies and getting and going to see the work, seeing the work and saying, oh, it's why am I being limited? I mean, as I said, our actors have come from they've learned it. Most of them have learned their craft by acting at university level, at regional theater level, at Broadway level. No, we and at off-Broadway level, in the TV world. Working with us will provide an opportunity to see. And we have to provide those opportunities. And we have to become, for other companies, a source for companies that are not, i.e., for example, any theater company who works can say, come to us and say, oh, you see what you've done? We're trying to integrate into our field actors with disability into our plays. Okay, we'll help them. We don't want to help you integrate. We want you to say any role is open for an actor. And if you've got a role that's been written, so for example, you take feeling play, which I'm just blanking on, which the actress is blind. It was just done again this year by Irish Rep. It should be played by an actress with a visual impairment. We have actresses who've played that role on off-Broadway who work with us. If you're going to cast it, don't cast a role that is a person where the role is a character with a disability with a person who doesn't have this. You've got to get other theater companies to recognize, to open up and say, here's the world of actors. I mean, you can see it. The name ones who've done it are now getting continual roles, but there are thousands behind them who are just as good.
Yeah,
and have had experience, but have not had access.
Yeah,
we're providing access. We've got to provide the opportunity for others to see them gain that access. And we can only do that through production. By being producing.
If people want to know more about TBTB and how to get involved with the incredible work we do, how would someone do that?
If they're interested in working with the company as an actor or playwright, go on the website, www.tbt.org, and contact Nick Selly. Just Nick, he's there. If you're interested in getting involved on the board level, contact me. You can I don't want to get all the resumes. I can send them to you and send them to me. But if they're interested in the board level, drop a note to us. I will say, look, through our contacts, we've been able to get some great organizations to help us in our projects. We're working with one of the major law firms in the world, DLA Piper, on a pro bono basis, on working with us on some of our contract issues, policy issues. Work with us. If you're interested in the organization, you contribute to us. If you want to contribute, just go online and contribute. If you want to find more about the board and opportunities for the board, be on the board, send in your resume to Nick and he'll get it to me. I think there is a email address for me on tbt.org also. But in fact, what I'll do is I'll check with Nick and get that address, and then you can add it in later.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in working in theater, working, and if you know of people who have been hesitant about getting involved in this field. And I will say to people who are interested in theater, we offer an opportunity to get involved in theater without the economic risk of a Broadway world. And I know I've run across a number of producers who are active in both sides, in the off-Broadway, in the not-for-profit side and the for-profit side of theater. If you're involved in the for-profit side of theater, come talk to us for the not-for-profit side. Hey, we're here. We're a resource for you as much as for our actors and playwrights.
Well, Lou, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing so much of your candor and personal history with TBTB, and for the continued incredible work you do on behalf of TBTB and making theater at all levels more accessible for all of us.
No, thank you, Keith. And thank you for being on the board also and giving us your expertise as an advocate. We need advocates.
Yes.
And we need the advocates to open up airways to us.
Yes, I was shocked to hear I was the youngest board member. I'm not that young, but I think we need more advocates of all ages, because you never know the type of connections a board member, they may not have the financial connection, but they may have the promotional connection. You never know.
You never know who you know. One of my first mentors in one not-for-profits and development side said, write down your list of people you know, and then write down what they're interested in.
Yeah.
One of the things, if you go to, let's say, when I was chair of One Stop for Senior Services, you go to a foundation for grant, and they say, well, we don't quite cover you, but I know these 3 institutions that do.
Yeah.
And that's the same here. We can go to one of our major funders and say, okay, we know you're going to be able to fund this XYZ. But who funds what our particular area of operation and what our mission is? Who do you know in the field? And that's what we have to do. We have to widen it. And we need younger people with younger contacts.
Yeah, we do. And I look forward to seeing you in December when I'm in town again. And I look forward to seeing and helping our create a more accessible future for TBTB and theater in general in 2025 and beyond. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Keith. Take care.
Bye-bye. You too.